Welcome to my channel. This is part 1 in a 9-part series on drafting a pattern for an 1870s evening gown based on a design by the acclaimed costume designer Susan Tsu. In this tutorial, I will teach you how to draft the 8 gored skirt that serves as a base for this multi-layer garment. Let's get started. Alright, since this is the first part in the series, we need to import our custom avatar. So I'm going to go to File, Import, FBX, and then navigate to the folder on my computer where you downloaded the files for the 1870s evening gown, and then find the file that says 1870s female avatar, double click to import. And then for our settings, we want to make sure that we have load type open, object type avatar, scale needs to be at centimeters or DAS Studio, and then make sure that's at 100%. And then we don't need to check any of these boxes, but we do need to check auto add arrangement points. We don't need a fitting suit, and we don't need to move garment to start position or align to ground. And you can just double check that the axis conversion is X, Y in parentheses up, and Z. And if it looks like this, then it's good. And you can go ahead and click OK. For the skirt, we need to draft the waistband first. So to do that, we're going to go to the rectangle tool or the S hotkey. That's right here in the 2D toolbar. And then click anywhere in the 2D window. And the waistband, we're going to want it to be 12 inches wide because we're just doing half of the waistband and her waist is 24 inches. And for height, we're just going to do 1 inch. And then click OK. If you're following along the written guide, I've labeled these points A, B, C, and D for ease of communication. Once you have your half of a waistband, we're going to go ahead and unfold the center front. So go ahead and go to the Edit Pattern tool or the Z hotkey, which is right here in the 2D toolbar. And then right-click line BD and choose Unfold Symmetric Editing with Sewing. We just unfolded it in center front, so we need to sew center back. So I'm going to go to the segment sewing tool. That is the N hotkey and right here in the 2D toolbar. And I'm just going to click line AC over here. Notice where the notch is, it's near the top, and then making sure that that seam isn't crossing like this. We're just going to click near the same area on the other side and sew those two sides together. All right, now we can go ahead and move over to the 3D window and put the waistband on the avatar. I'm just going to go to the Select Move tool. That's the Q hotkey, and it's right here in the 3D toolbar. And I'm just going to select the waistband, and then I'm going to choose Shift F on my keyboard. That will show the arrangement points. And then I will find one that's close to the waist. Let's try maybe this one. And I'm just going to double check by rotating around and then using the gizmo to put this waistband in place. And once it looks like it's going to sew correctly, I can go ahead and press space to simulate. Putting that waistband in place, adjusting it, making sure that that seam is at the center back. And once it's where I like it, I'm going to go ahead and right click and then choose freeze. Freezing the waistband in place will just make sure that any of the skirt patterns while I'm working on them won't distort the waistband by pulling it down and distorting the fit of the skirt. Okay, now that we have our waistband, we can start making our 4 skirt panels. We'll start with the front. I'm just going to go to the same rectangle tool or the S hotkey and clicking anywhere in the 2D window. I'm going to say that the front panel is going to be a width of 3 inches and a height of 46 inches, and then click OK. And then that is the center front. And then now I want to do the side front. So using the same rectangle tool, click anywhere in the 2D window. The side front, we want to be 3.5 inches, and we want it to be 46.5 inches tall. Go ahead and click OK. All right, now back to the rectangle tool. We're going to make our side back pattern, which is going to be the same 3.5 inches. And it's going to be 47 inches tall. notice we're getting longer as we move our way around towards the back. And lastly, we want to make our center back panel, which will be the same tool, clicking anywhere in the 2D window and typing in 2 inches wide and 48 inches long. I went ahead and annotated all of these points as described in the written guide. Okay, now we can start adding fullness to our gores. So let's go to the fullness line tool. There's no hotkey, you just have to click and hold on the fullness point tool, and then you'll get the option for the fullness line tool. Go ahead and select that. And starting with our center front, we're going to click on point E, then we're going to click on point F, then we're going to click on point G, and then on point H. And then once we do that, this fullness dialog window will open, and we want to make sure that the direction says start, and then we're going to leave fullness line length alone, but the slash line length, we're going to type in 9 inches. And you'll notice that it starts to gore out towards the back. That's what we want. And go ahead and click OK. Now we're going to do basically the same thing on the side front. We're going to click on point I, then point J, then point K, then point L, and leaving the direction at start, we're going to leave the fullness line length alone, but the slash line length, we're going to type in 12 inches, and then making sure that the gore is moving towards the back. Okay, and now the same in the side back, clicking on point M, then point N, then point O, then point P, and directions is start. Fullness line length we're leaving alone, but the slash line length we're going to make it 15 inches, and then click OK. Now the very last one is the center back, so we're going to click point Q, then R, then S, then T, and this time we actually want the gore to go the opposite direction, so we're going to change the direction to end, and then we want we're going to leave the fullness line length alone, and the slash line length we're going to make 12, and then click OK. All right, because we made each panel a different length, we need to true the seams in between them. So we need to go to the Edit Pattern tool, or the Z hotkey, right click line EG on the front, and then choose Change Length. For the length, we're going to make it the length of the side front, so that is 46.5. And then be careful making sure that it's actually the direction is end and not start. We don't want it to make the piece taller at the top. We want to make it longer at the bottom. And then click OK. Now moving on to line IK, right click, change length, and now we want to make the side front match up to the side back, so it needs to be 47 inches, and once again we need to change the direction to end, and then click OK. And now matching up this side back to the center back, so that's line MO, right click, change length, and that needs to be 48 inches. Again, changing the direction to the end, and then click OK. And the very last thing we're going to do is just lengthen the center back a little bit. So right click line QS, change length, and we're going to make that 49 inches to make sure it'll go all the way over that bustle. And then we're going to choose end once again and click OK. Now what we need to do is add a curve to these patterns, because right now as they're straight and they won't follow the curve of the undergarments. So, looking at this form here, she's gonna, these skirt panels won't fall straight down. They need to go over something first. So we need to add curve points to these panels. We're going to go to the Edit Curve Point tool. That is the V hotkey, and it's right here in the 2D toolbar, Edit Curve Point. You have to click down on Edit Pattern and then choose Edit Curve Point. So going back to the center front, we're going to right click on the line EG, but we're going to click near E, so near the top. We're going to right click, and then we can type in exactly where we want that curve point to be. I want it to be 7 inches down, so that because I clicked near the top, that's going to put it 7 inches from point E, which is what I want. And then I can go ahead and click OK. And now that I have this point, I can drag it out. So I'm just going to click and hold on the point while still having the edit curve point tool selected. And if I hold shift, it's going to lock it to the x-axis, which is great. And then it doesn't matter where it's at, just go ahead and right click so that you can input an exact distance in this moving distance box. And we want to make sure it's 1 inch, and then that'll be, -1 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis. Go ahead and click OK. We're going to do those same 2 steps to every one of these panels. So I'm going to go to now line IK. I'm going to right click near I. I'm going to type 7. OK. And then I'm going to click that point, drag it out, and then choose distance moved 1 inch, x-axis -1, etc. Okay. We're going to do the same exact thing to MO. Right click near M, 7, okay. Click and drag out 1 inch. Okay. And now we're actually going to add the curve to line RT on the back. So right click, 7, okay. Click and drag, and this time it's going to be actually just 1 inch on the x-axis instead of -1, but still the distance moved is 1 inch. Go ahead and click OK. Our skirt panels are drafted, so now all we have to do is sew them to the waistband and to each other. So let's go ahead and go to the M to N free sewing tool. There's no hotkey, you just have to click down up here in the 2D toolbar. Instead of free sewing, we're going to do M to N free sewing. Click that, and let's go ahead and start at center front. Let's click F, then click E, then click J, then click I, then click N, M, R, and Q. Once all of those are selected in that order, you can press enter, and that will confirm that side of the sewing. And now going to the waistband, we're just going to click on D, and then we're going to click on C, and that's all we're sewing to on that side. So we can press enter, and your sewing lines should look something like this. Now we can go ahead and go to our select move tool or Q hotkey in the 3D window, and just shift click all of these pieces. And then once they're selected, right click and then choose superimpose side, and it's going to put them roughly next to the skirt panel. I recommend, if we simulate right now, they're just going to continue their collision journey. Go ahead and selecting them one at a time and pulling them out a little bit so that there's no collision. They're really deep in here, but I was able to grab that and that one there. And with nothing colliding, let's see what happens if we press space to simulate. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Great. We can see that these are going to fit together rather nicely. And so we can go ahead and duplicate them to make the other side. So for the center front, I'm going to go to the Edit Pattern tool, or the Z hotkey, and I'm just going to right-click line FH and choose Unfold Symmetric Editing with Sewing. And that will be my other half of the center front. But for the other 3 panels, the side front, the side back, and the center back, I'm going to go to the Transform Pattern tool, or the A hotkey. I'm going to hold shift and click those 3 patterns, and then I'm going to use Command or Control D to duplicate them with symmetrical sewing and go ahead and put them on the other side. In the 3D window, they'll automatically populate where we want them. We can go ahead and press simulate just to make sure they're all good. And now we can sew them all together. So I'm going to go to the segment sewing tool, or the N hotkey, and I'm going to sew my center back to my center back. So that's QS to QS. And then I'm going to sew the side, the center back to the side back. I'm going to sew the side back to the side front, and I'm going to sew the side front to the center front, and go ahead and simulate. All right, not bad. It looks pretty good. So this is actually the end of drafting the skirt. That's all we need to do. And while we're working on the other parts of this project, I will not have the skirt visible because we're going to go ahead and use Command or Control A to select all the pieces, and then right click and choose Deactivate Pattern and Sewing. And then we're going to use Shift Q on the keyboard to hide them. And that will just make sure that they are not taking up any processing power while we're working on the other patterns. They won't cause any collision issues, and visually they will be out of the way until we're ready to work with the skirt again. And that concludes this part of the tutorial. That is part 1 of 9, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next part in the series.